Happy New Comic Book Day, geeks, and welcome to issue 45 of the Script Heroes podcast.
Where we bring you comic news, book reviews, and industry blues. My name is Joseph Jasanowski, and I am the writer of Janitor Hero, Cunning Carly, and the Cryptoverse.
And I'm Katie Markham, scripter of the Rusty Robot Country Club and ghostwriter extraordinaire. We have some rad polls today with DC's All-In Initiative. We're actually jumping in the middle of the series with Batman and Robin number 14. We've got a new series that we're picking up from Mad Cave called Murder Kingdom. And it's issue 2 of my favorite book from, I'm going to guess 4 weeks ago, Minor Arcana from Jeff Lemire.
You're. I thought you were gonna say like my favorite book it's from Boom, right? Or is it from Dark Horse? No, I don't know.
Dark Horse? I feel like Jeff Lemire. No, it is Boom. I feel like Jeff Lemire is normally a Dark Horse.
Yeah, that's why I was like, but I felt like it was Boom. I thought you were gonna be like my favorite book from Boom, and I'm like, do you read that many books from Boom?
No, I love The Displaced. So like I wouldn't be able to just off the cuff say my favorite book from Boom.
You enjoyed our little ramble there. Or if you enjoy anything else in today's episode, any of those reviews or anything else, you can follow the pod on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, all at the handle Script Heroes Pod. Or you can find me personally on all the same socials at JJAZ1111.
And I'm on all the socials at Katie Markham Pro.
And now, let's get into the news. So I have no idea if you've seen this, but DC has announced...
Okay, I'm going to guess. Is it the Nightwing butt thing?
That is part of it. It's a new line of digital scrolling webcomics called DC Go. So, is the Nightwing butt comic the only one you saw?
Yeah, because one of my friends sent me it, and he was like, "Do you care about this?" And I'm like, "I'll save my thoughts. You go ahead and read us the news."
Okay, so there are, I believe, 3 new titles announced at launch, in addition to Batman Hush is weirdly being rejigged into a scroll comic for this as well.
Interesting.
Which feels random compared to the other things, but the 3 new titles
they're banking on the hype of Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee coming back to Batman.
Yeah, probably. But the 3 titles here being launched are Harley Quinn in Paradise by CRC Payne and Sobin Chiffin, and Nothing But Nightwing.
Is that probably Siobhan?
What?
That second name. I haven't looked, but I'm guessing it's Siobhan.
It's maybe Siobhan. This is what happens
when you're Irish.
Like a medium that's like 90% reading, it's like I don't know how to pronounce anything's name.
I don't know how to pronounce anything.
Unless I happen to see them at a panel.
Notoriously hard to pronounce Irish names.
Yeah. What are Irish people doing? Anyway.
You're lucky my name's just Kathleen.
Yeah. Nothing but Nightwing by Patrick R. Young and Moy R. Marco, and Renaissance of Raven by Sina Grace, Nico Bashunin, and Catherine Lobo.
Sina Grace sounds super familiar.
Yeah.
I think I don't remember what they've done, but I've heard good things about them.
And good first step for I'm thinking. Do you want to just talk about the title? Do you want the blurbs for these books here?
Why don't we do just quick blurbing? Just because I don't know what any of them are about. Well, I know what the Nightwing is.
I've actually seen some pages from the Nightwing one that happened to pop up on Twitter. Weird, really weird. The pages I saw were a breakup between Barbara and Nightwing, where Barbara's like going off on Dick for not having a personal life and being all about the vigilante life, and then she makes a butt joke at the end of the breakup, and those are the pages that I saw. But in any case, let's get into the blurb for said book.
Mm-hmm.
Dick Grayson, the first Robin, has made a name for himself as the hero Nightwing, but after several failed civilian identity career attempts, a bar, a gym, etc., he lands his biggest deep cover operation yet, as an international supermodel. He's got the eyes of the audience, the other models, and even a few agents, but he only has eyes for one thing: the poison ivy protege on the hunt to steal the expensive and environmentally harmful jewels around the models' necks, and perhaps the models themselves. But can he serve justice while
And
traveling the
serve.
globe? The spotlight is on Dick
Oh,
Grayson in Nothing But Nightwing, because his first gig is an underwear print campaign.
okay. Ugh. Should we just rip the band-aid off? I'm gonna take your silence as a yes. I mean, it's clearly supposed to be stupid. It's called Nothing But Nightwing. It's clearly meant to be like a goofy romp. And like, no shade on a goofy romp. I'm not gonna read it. Probably. like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
maybe I will have just morbid curiosity in the dead of evening one night and scroll read through it. But like, it's a format that I don't particularly love. It's a storyline that I am hesitant about at best and actively dislike at worst. It's not any creators that I know and love, so like that's not a draw for me. It's I saw this and I was genuinely like, no, you can't do this to him. Like it's I feel like Nightwing is in and this is definitely a full ass tangent. I feel like he's in such a precarious spot right now where he had such a great resurgence with Leap into the Light, and like everybody was jumping on Nightwing, and then they fucked him up when they're like, no, we're gonna make him the head of this group of Titans that's not the Justice League, and we're gonna put like the entirety of the DC universe on his shoulders. And I
You
feel
want to
like
like
he's in such a precarious spot, and this is not something that I want going on when he's hopefully moving into a new another new era with the creative team change on the mainline book. But that's my
yeah,
Nightwing
and
rant.
on the mainline Titans book. I mean, that's super fair. I mean, it makes me want to go on a tangent about things I've seen about the new Titans, like situation with the Justice League stuff. But I'm gonna try not to tangent too hard here.
Okay, okay.
In any case, yeah, I think I feel very similarly to you. Like this is full cash in on the Nightwing butt jokes.
And like,
It's so like this feels like it's the vibe of this line, which is what makes me so confused about Batman. Partner?
right, right. Like,
Like
so I think that it's really neat. And don't worry, this isn't Nightwing specific. Uh, I think it's really neat that DC is really trying to like tap into these other like comic forms. Like I think it's neat
yeah,
that they did a
absolutely.
webtoon and they did a few webtoons and they've been very successful webtoons.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think that it's a boon to them that they didn't go in with an attitude of like, yeah, we're gonna make this format grittier and darker because there are gritty and dark webtoons, but most webtoons out there are a little lighter, a little more slice of life, or like a little more romancy. So
Yeah.
like, I think that it's a good thing that they didn't go in and try to like stereotypical superhero action comic on it. I'm worried that they swung way too far in the other direction. And I think that with like the Wayne family adventures, it was borderline. It was borderline too far in the other direction, where it was like, okay, we don't. It's not focused on one character, so everyone's being goofy and being like their most stereotypical version of themselves. But it's for like very brief flashes, and that was like the that was my like you're on thin ice, DC. I see you.
It was just acceptable enough for Katie. It was just
Exactly.
acceptable enough to scoop by for Katie.
But I feel like this is such like this is so full goofy. And I'm like, no, my boy, and it's gonna be him being goofy the entire time. I am with someone like Harley, I get it. And I'm assuming that with Raven, it's not as ridiculous of a book. Like probably more of just like a classic
What, you want to
YA.
segue into the Raven blurb
Yeah,
with
yeah, tell
that?
me about the Raven part.
Okay. Raven needs an escape. Her fellow Titans won't leave her alone. She just had a fight with Beast Boy, and to top it off, it's the anniversary of her mom's death. We find her trying to live life beyond the curse of her father. She's over it. Raven is more than her trauma. When a strange girl in a graveyard proclaims that Raven is some sort of destined hero, she's ready to walk away, until suddenly she's pulled through an enchanted portal to the kingdom of Galonia. Raven is sent hundreds of years into the past, where she must contend with a cabal of witches and the difficult choice of helping those in need or returning home.
And see, I think that has obviously the start of it is a little much with like, oh yeah, she had a fight with Beast Boy and yada yada. Like it's a little kitschy, but that I can at least see being more of like a kind of, you know, young skewing young adult coming of age type story. Kind of like her I don't remember if it was Rebirth or the tail end of New 52, but she had a solo series in like 2015, 2016 that was like Raven in school while like it and it was like a solo Raven book. And it was cute. It was fun. Um and I can see this being more that, and I think that actually really fits the kind of tone of a scrolly comic quite well. What do you think?
Feels to me like they're going with each one of these like in one of the major. Again, these aren't webtoons because these are going to be,
Yeah,
I guess, I think on DCUI,
they're on
because they're
DCUA.
DC like originals, yeah. So, but I think they're going with like each of the like most popular genres of
Yeah,
webtoons for each of these, with
so we've
Nightwing
got
being kind of the
sexy
slice of life
romance.
one, with Raven being like that sort of like it's not actually like Izeki, but like the Izeki adjacent where it's either like, oh, they go into a fictional world or they go into the past or whatever. Like that sort
Mm-hmm.
of thing is very popular in Webtoon. So I think that's taking that. And then Harley
Harley.
Quinn, I believe, is gonna be our I skimmed this, so we'll see if this is true. But I believe is gonna be the romance here.
I mean, it
So
is called
let's
Harley in Paradise.
let's read the Harley Quinn blurb right here.
Do it.
Harley Quinn is rarely lucky in love, and after a recent breakup with the Joker, has been feeling particularly chaotic. Ivy advises Harley to lay low for a while. Maybe a little R&R, recklessness and robbery, would be good for her. Good advice, right? True to character, Harley decides the best way to lay low is to plaster her face across every television in America and to find true love on TV's hottest reality dating show. Harley heads for the show's island setting, ready to be the best contestant the program has ever seen, because she's playing to win by any means necessary. And can she help it if she accidentally falls in love along the way?
Okay, so a little bit of Katie lore here for you. My personal lore. I, for a while, was an absolute sucker for the Bachelor franchise. I was in college. I was going to my friend's house every Monday night and watching with him and his mom. It was great. Uh, it was the best seasons of The Bachelor that you've ever seen because it was Hannah Brown and then Peter, and it was so good. Those who know. And
We got the Kate talking about The Bachelor on the podcast. This is where we've descended to.
not even a year in, baby. And
Oh no, this
this
doesn't
is
bode
clearly
well.
a parody of like the Love Island adjacent, Bachelor in
Yeah.
Paradise adjacent. I feel like there's one other island based love show. And I am honestly a little optimistic about this. I think this could be goofy as hell in a very good way. My main concern is who her supporting cast is going to be. Because, like,
Guess
I
there's a
think,
bunch of OCs, like new
yeah.
islandy
And I
characters,
think
maybe a
that the way
cameraman.
that this could work in a way that I think would be fun and make actual sense would be if it's a bunch of like dumb islander reality show people, and then she has a lot of contact with her regular, I don't know, cast. So like it sounds like she's connected to Ivy in this. I'm
This is that Ivy's just the like setup, like the we're gonna start with her with Ivy and then we'll progress. And I'm going based off of the fact that the cover has no recognizable character other than her, which I feel
okay.
like
That
bodes.
is both a relief and a sigh because my greatest fear would be if she goes onto this island show and it's like, oh, the Riddler's here, also trying to find, oh, Bane's here, and if it like went full Harley Quinn TV show, like animated series with it, which I think worked in the animated series. I don't know that I would be able to stand it in like any other format.
Talked about before how TV and film can get away with a little bit more because they have actors doing it, so you can
Yeah.
like
So I'm like, hey,
something there,
that's
but
the
when you do
dude
stuff
from
like that,
Community voicing the Riddler.
but when you sit there and it's like you're reading it, sometimes it's harder to stomach.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a feeling that's going to go full blown webtoon up in there, but we'll see.
Which could be
Um,
funny. I think a lot of this is going to depend on how long they're supposed to be.
webtoons go forever. Like look at Wayne
I know,
Family
but
Adventures.
but this isn't a webtoon. They've done webtoons and are continuing to do
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
Like Wayne Family Adventures, I
they
think,
are.
is still coming out, and I don't know about
I
the other
think
ones.
so.
Um,
I think the Red Hood one ended. I feel like I remember seeing that ended, but
I
and I think
believe
there was
it.
what was the other one? I think the other one ended too. I can't
There
remember
was
what
a
the other one
Vixen
was
one,
though.
I think.
Yeah, I think the Vixen one ended too.
Yeah.
They might. I think they like. I think they were unrolling new ones though. Like I think there's been multiple other than
I
the
believe it,
OG
yeah.
ones.
But with
But I think
this
Wayne
being
Family
released
Adventures like the
on
biggest one.
DC, this kind of is a bit of a throwback for me. Because we were not friends when DC was still putting out like original content on DC UI. Uh, like when Titans was coming out, when Young Justice was coming out on DC UI.
Yeah, but you mean DCU like when it was
Yes, yes, sorry. Yeah,
DCU.
before it
Yeah,
was Infinite, and
before it was
by that
Infinite.
they
Before
meant
it was
infinitely
comics.
smaller. Uh,
Yeah, and they only had comics from like 6 months ago, and
yeah,
they had the TV shows and stuff. Yeah,
because
Stargirl.
one thing that
Really good.
I was really excited about with that is it felt like a chance for DC to be making these things for people who are already DC fans, as opposed to
Yeah,
like I don't know, Teen Titans, which is phenomenal to be clear, and made so many people into DC
no,
fans.
don't throw any shade at Teen
I
Titans. Yeah,
I feel like it's I have the entire fucking box set on Blu-ray somewhere. Uh, like I fucking love Teen Titans. But like it's very much meant to be like a call in, whereas
yeah,
like with the third season of Young Justice, it was obviously a third season of a show that already had an audience, but it was also put out on DC Universe, which, you know, kind of meant that the people watching it were the people who were invested in the DC Universe and DC Universe in general. So it gives it a chance to be more niche, and
yeah.
I have a light hope that that might be the case with these.
I think it's the complete reverse here would be my guess. Because the first thing I'm gonna throw out is I think that's why DCU failed because there's not
Yes,
enough hardcore DC
correct.
fans to support high budget TV and film being produced
I
just for
mean,
them.
correct. But it's not like a webtoon is high budget the way that a season of Titans was, despite how shitty their
Yeah.
CGI budget was.
But the point I'm making here is like this feels like a way to try to get like new people to subscribe to DCUI, like because if you're a hardcore DC fan, you've probably already got DCUI, right? Like
Yeah.
my guess is, and none of these sound like because one they do what the webtoons did, and they seemingly put all the characters back to step one. Like
Yeah.
this is a Harley who just broke up with the Joker, which is obviously the Harley Quinn show. The movie, like that's the step one for modern
Yes.
Harley is take
Yeah.
her to just broke up with the Joker and move from there. And two, they just feel like they're very much trying to grab a more mainstream scroll
Mhm.
comic-y fan audience, which I don't know how well that'll work because is anybody going to subscribe specifically to a DC service to try out a comic that's meant to
Right?
appeal to them? Like maybe if they put the first couple chapters for free somewhere to like try to draw people in. But yeah, I don't know how that'll work. But that would
Yeah.
be my guess. These don't come across to me like they are meant for the hardcore DC fan.
I mean, fair. You are definitely the one who's correct in this instance, but you would rob me of hope.
I'm going to rob you of hope.
Is there?
I'm
I'm
just
not reading
calling
it.
it how I see it.
And you're
What?
probably right. Whatever. Yeah. No, I'm not thrilled about these in general. Um, I don't think they're like productive things to have going on for these characters. Because, like you said, they're probably not something that's going to draw someone in to read it the way that like Wayne Family Adventures did. Like I think a lot of people
Like if these were on
who
Webtoon, I think it would make a lot more sense because they'd be
Mhm.
very um, appealing to At least, honestly, I feel like only the Harley Quinn one really. Maybe Raven, because Raven is fairly popular with the Teen Titans crowd.
Yeah.
But like, is the mainstream audience that in on the Nightwing butt joke that they're gonna be into this book?
Okay, I didn't rant about it when you first brought it up, but you brought it back around, so I can't hold it in. The Nightwing butt joke is such a fucking, like, precarious thing. Every so often, it's done in a fun way. My personal favorite is in one of the Grayson annuals when Barbara Gordon is Batgirl. Everyone thinks Dick Grayson is dead, and it's a whole like tension thing because Dick is disguised and doing a mission with Batgirl, and it's very funny and a little bit heartbreaking, frankly. And as Dick is climbing into a helicopter to leave at the very end of the issue, you see this reaction shot of Babs. It's like Dick's ass, and then her going, "Wait a minute," and it's like it's a nonverbal, momentary joke, and that's fine. The other side of things in Grayson, which again, I like Grayson. I had fun reading Grayson. Is there are these students who won't shut the fuck up about Dick's ass, and I'm like, y'all need Jesus or something, because oh my god. Calm down. Mr. Tim Seeley, I love you so much, but like, please lay off the dick butt jokes. It's so like, it's so overdone and so uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's been going so long, and it's used so often now that it's like, can we get a new joke? Like it's just it's like a thing like when it blew up, which I think it really blew up when Nicola Scott did the like all of Nightwing's cover, and there was like the obvious like the main one in the middle had was facing the opposite way.
Well, the thing is, he has canonically always been caked the fuck up. We know this.
You got very. I hope the people at home heard you on that, because I did not. You got completely cut
I kind of hope they didn't, because I did use the phrase "caked the fuck up."
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like it's.
No, of course.
It's
I wish I hadn't heard that actually.
Yeah, it's like pretty consistent. It is like a funny thing that Nightwing is pretty much always drawn with an almost disproportionate ass. Like, it's a little funny. And it's very much comes with the territory of him wearing just spandex, no cape, no nothing. Like, it happens.
Yeah. The man is fully form-fitting.
Yes. Which is why we need a Nightwing redesign. God damn it, I loved the Rebirth design, I loved Bruno Redondo's design, but oh my god, we need like a full-ass Nightwing redesign. That's my piece on Nightwing's ass.
I'm glad to have your. No, I'm not. I'm not glad. I'm sorry. I'm the opposite of glad to have your piece on Nightwing's ass. But we're gonna. That's the perfect end for the segment, and we can move very nicely into actually talking about non-ass related comics for the week.
Yes, but still talking about one of the Robins. It all ties together.
A newer Robin. It all ties together. 3 polls for you guys this week. Murder Kingdom #1 from Mad Cave. We have Batman and Robin #14. I held that up horribly. From DC. And all my books are slipping away. Minor Arcana #2 from Boom. But of course, that's not all we picked up. Katie, what else do you have this fine week?
This fine week, I grabbed Exceptional X-Men #2. I picked up the first one, and I haven't read it yet. But this was the last one on the shelf, so I was like, I better grab it just in case I really like the first one. Gives you a shot into my mindset. I also am taking advantage of the DC All-In. I grabbed Poison Ivy. I have the first hardcover from G. Willow Wilson series. I've been meaning to like get back into it. But have not yet, and DC All-In feels like a good place for that. Then I also have Transformers #13, which I have been pulling but haven't been reading. I'm sure that it's still very good, for sure. And of course, Absolute Batman #1.
You didn't go the main cover. Interesting.
I went to the comic book store on Thursday. There were 2 covers left. One was like a $7 variant, and the other was this one. And I like this one. I like this one a lot.
Okay,
This is a West
Very
Craig
good.
one. Yeah. What did you get, Jaybird?
Firstly, I got my physical copy of Night of the Slashers #1 because my store got these in a week late for whatever reason. Then I also got Absolute Batman #1.
Hell yeah,
I've got
hell yeah.
the main cover here.
Hey, I feel I should point out, I do technically have the main cover. It just is the way that DC does sometimes, which I hate with my entire heart, inside the variant.
I mean, you have the main cover, or you have a picture of the main cover?
You can literally remove the, like, higher quality back, and you have a regular book. Like, they literally just staple extra pages. Have you never seen DC do this?
I've seen them, yeah.
Yeah. They literally just staple
like
an extra folio on.
Yeah. In any case, I also have, because I mistakenly thought Katie's friend was working on this book, I got the Toxic Avenger #1 from Ahoy Comics. So I'll read it, and we'll see how that goes. I thought Katie's friend was working on that.
Shout out
They were
Second
working
Coming.
on a different Ahoy comic. What? I'm sorry?
Ahoy's cute. Shout out to Second Coming. That was a fun book.
Yeah.
That could be... Ooh. I'm locking that away from one of my Strange Saturday picks.
Okay. Also have Transformers #13. That is correct. I got Dynamite's new Terminator #1 because there was some buzz here. I figured I'd check that out. What?
Who's writing Terminator?
It is Declan Shalvey, who I don't know that I have heard of.
I don't know that
before.
I do either.
And finally, I got Green Lantern Civil Core Special. Those are my books this week. But for our only three, light week for us.
Yeah.
Only 3 polls this week. Do you have an order, Katie? Do you have an order? What would you like to eat this week?
Well, good one. I normally like to start with DC. So my inclination would be Batman and Robin, Murder Kingdom, Minor Arcana. Thoughts?
Let's do it. Batman and Robin #14. Damian Wayne is the son of the Bat, grandson of the Demon, and Robin. But as he nears the age at which his father traveled the world, one question is on his mind. Who is Damian outside of the Crusades his family has tasked him with fighting since birth? When he starts to look beyond his life of endless violence, a different way to help the world begins to present itself. But when an enigmatic new murderer begins reenacting traumatic crimes from Gotham's history, Batman will need Robin more than ever before. The writer on the series is Philip Kennedy Johnson of Action Comics and Green Lantern War Journal. The artist is Javier Fernandez of Kingspawn and Nightwing. The colorist is Marcelo Melo, and the letterer is Steve Wands. We're jumping into issue 14 here.
Yes.
But personally, I didn't think it really felt like we were jumping in at issue 14 here. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, one of the reasons that I was really excited for us to grab this week is because DC's All-In Initiative, theoretically, is supposed to be like, hey, anyone who wants to jump in, this is a clean place to do it. And I feel like they really accomplished that with this. I don't feel like I'm missing context, because it's, Batman and Robin together. It's not a hard sell to understand where they're at. And I think that we do start at a good place of examining the relationship between Bruce and Damian. Spoiler alert, that's my favorite relationship in the Bat family. We've talked about this before, where Bruce and Damian kind of fill the same role, and the reason that Dick is such a good partner for Bruce is the same reason that Damian was such a good partner for Dick as Batman. And when they're together, they're they kind of push each other out of their core characterization a bit, in my opinion, because someone has to be the kind of angsty, broody one, and it can't be both of them. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I thought that the art, first of all, was really wonderful. It specifically in the action scenes, we get a long sequence that is like kind of uh hoity-toity dinner party-esque stuff. Yes, that's what I was about to bring up. Jay is holding up the page where Bruce has like
I knew
cut the
exactly where you're going.
yeah,
I could feel it.
Bruce has cut the power in the building because he doesn't have time to like suit up as Batman, and so
Can
he
we talk about how
needs
great that is, though? Like, no bullshit
right.
of like this emergency. He's gonna run through the door and then just be in the Batman costume when we cut to the next scene. Like, just actually sitting there being. And Phil Kennedy Johnson's a phenomenal writer because of shit
Mhm.
like this. Like, just no. He's not gonna be able to suit up, but he also just can't let this thing happen. So it's just such a nice. Ugh. Had to gush
And
about
like
that. I really.
Bruce Wayne is a drama queen. We know this. The monologuing in that scene, I actually really liked. I thought that it got close to the edge of a little too much, but I ended up really liking it. It's Gotham needs a Batman, and Batman needs a mask, but darkness is all the mask I need. It's, I think that's really effective. I think that did a really great job as we're
I,
seeing Bruce do this. And if you're on the video pod, you saw Jay holding up the comic before. We get this like classic Batman silhouette because we don't really see the top of his head and like the white slits of Bruce's eyes as he's getting into combat. We see it all happening in shadows. That was just such a gorgeous sequence. I think that
yep.
this is already scratching the kind of itch that I love in a Batman story, which is something that feels like Gotham is such an important character to the story. I it like the blurb said, it's gonna have to do with like past crimes in Gotham. We get some really good groundwork for this like incredibly old villain, and we also get a little head nod towards Ra's al Ghul, and I am super stoked to see where these puzzle pieces are going to be coming together. I think that if it's just like a kind of tried and true Batman and Robin adventure, it's really, really, really set up for success. And I think that is super rad. How'd you
Yeah.
feel?
I'm gonna agree with a lot of what you said there. I want to add on. I think the opening crime mission is great. I love
Yes.
like the car bomb
Mm-hmm.
kind of chase that they're stopping. Like it's really cool. It's great action all throughout. Very entertaining. We get that like it's like a good setup for like how this Batman and Robin work together as like your
Mm-hmm.
initial throw-in point if you're jumping in here. I liked everything that you liked for the most part. I'm gonna add in my slight thing of like I agree with you with the dynamic thing, and I do think coming in here, I'm like I don't love Damien, and I don't love where Damien's at here. Like it feels like we were
Mm-hmm.
kind of I can't remember now if it was on or off camera that we talked about this related to the news this week, but it's like setting characters back to stage one. Damien suffers, I think, a lot from the same of what Jason suffers from of being
You,
set
yeah.
back to like step two of their story, and it feels like we're back at like step two of Damien here, where it's like, ah,
Mm-hmm.
yes, Damien wants to be a hero now, but he also can only, deal with fighting, and he only wants to stop bad guys. It's like, I get it. That's like the story. That's the classic. Like we're bringing in new people now, but I don't know, man. Damien's been around for over a decade at this point. Do we still have to be, telling that story of
Yeah.
him, at stage one of his story?
And
That's my
with that
only
as
gripe, though. Like I
well,
said, I think Phil Kennedy Johnson is a
mhm.
brilliant writer. I think
Oh
Javier
yeah,
Fernandez's artwork is phenomenal in this, and it does feel like just really good Batman and very good Batman
absolutely.
and Robin action, and even very good Bruce Wayne stuff. I just feel like Damian, particularly Damian. I like the way Batman, Robin, and Bruce Wayne are in this issue, but Damian on his civilian side feels like the slight weak link in this issue to me.
And it doesn't help because Damien just normally kind of sucks. And that it's unfortunate that his like character type is that he sucks.
Think that's what like he only sucks because he's stuck at stage one. Like in
Yes,
theory, his character should get to not sucking, but we just have
correct.
been at stage one, stage two. Maybe we get to stage three just to jump back to stage one and two. Like we don't get out of this. Okay, 10 years in, we should be out of the he sucks
Yes,
stage.
we very much should. But it doesn't help that
I
his
think we're
stage
well.
one is that he sucks.
I'm
Because
just
like
bumpers.
Dick's stage one is that he's like fun. Like he's an
I mean,
acrobat.
like they all go like Jason goes from like sucks to not sucks to extra sucks to maybe sucks a little bit less. Dick goes from doesn't suck at all to kind of sucks a little bit to doesn't suck at all. Tim goes from sucks but wants you to think he doesn't suck to sucks but DC forgot he exists. And Damien
And no
Damien
third
goes,
step for him. DC has continued to forget he exists.
oh, maybe they just still forgot he exists. Damien goes from sucks to sucks a little bit less to maybe doesn't suck at all back to sucks to
Yes.
and
This is a
that's
beautiful
the progression.
chart. A beautiful, beautiful graphic.
Full explanation of how all the Robins work in the DC
There you
universe. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
I wonder if anybody can pin down what I'm actually talking about with the events there, because there's some clear things, but it makes sense in my mind.
Well, I pity the fool who can make sense of your mind, Jay. Let's head over to Murder Kingdom number 1. Murder Kingdom number 1. You must be this tall to die. Once upon a time, in a strange land called Florida, a masked psycho starts murdering cast members of the Storybook Kingdom theme park in ways identical to the gory original Grimm's fairy tales. Princess-turned-detective Tanith is the only person who can unmask the killer before she and her friends are all dying unhappily never after. The writer here is Fred Von Lente of Marvel Zombies, Amazing Spider-Man, and Iron Man. The artist is Chris Panda of Rom, First Strike, and Micronauts and Transformers. And the letterer is Becca Carey. Jay.
Yes.
I feel like we had no preconceived notions. I don't think we know any of these creators. We're going. No. I don't have any sort of intro.
Becca Carey.
Yes, Becca Carey.
I think she's worked on the Massiverse. I believe she's the letter on the Massiverse.
I believe that is correct. Yeah. And at the very, I think she's a pretty big, just indie letterer in general.
Yeah, I believe so. But I think the Massiverse is like the that's the thing that immediately I think came to me.
Billion.
If I'm mistaken on that, I have really screwed the pooch. But
well, I think that's fine.
I think she's the letter on the Massiverse.
In any case. Now I've had my intro patter for the book, so I can toss it over to you. How did you like Murder Kingdom number 1?
This was rad. I really enjoyed this. I love the way the characters in this are written so much. Like, this is really a setup issue, which I know just last week I went after a book for being, like, all set up and then, like, the cool thing happening at the very end, which is how these, like, more horror-y books tend to go. But if you remember, my gripe last week was that they didn't make me care about the characters before the big, like, murder thing. This is the opposite. I think Tanith is a super interestingly written character, feels super real. Like, who has a dream of becoming an escape room designer? That feels so fucking real. Like, that's not a fictional character. Job preference.
That's a real goon out here living in Florida.
Yeah, I really enjoy that. I enjoy the way the workers interact a ton. I enjoyed them having, like, I think social media stuff can be so cringy when it's brought in, but I love the way that the, like, little live stream bit was done in this. I thought that was really, really cool. And I think all of the dialogue is fantastic. I really... And the parody of Disney and stuff is really fun, too. We just did another Disney parody.
I was going to say, after watching Sea Guy, after reading Sea Guy, it's a little, thematic. Speaking of, go watch our bonus episode of Sea Guy.
But yeah, it just felt like a really good slow build into the issue ender, which then was really effective because of that and sets up the rest of the series. So there's a nice little the person on the live stream is named after a cheese, and there's a nice line about you can't trust people named after cheese, and I had an ex named after the same cheese, so that tickled me very well. So I enjoyed that quite a bit.
I'm glad that spoke to you.
So yeah, I enjoyed this. I thought this was really, really cool. I'm really excited for this series. This feels like a really good set. Weirdly, like, I got so into the characters, I was like forgetting this was a murder thing, and then that happened, and I went, well, I'm super invested and down for the murder, but I kind of want to read the version of this book that isn't a murder mystery thing. Like, I kind of want to. I don't know what it would really be about, but I kind of want to, just I want to get these characters, having a good time around and seeing what happens to them.
What a goober!
So yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed this.
Yeah, I feel like I enjoyed it as well. I think that I was a little less forgiving of the long build up, because it truly is like the last two
Basically,
pages,
I guess like
3 pages,
3 pages. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that are the heel turn. Whereas it came a little quicker in Night of the Slashers, which I think was why it was a little more fine for me there. Uh, so it was a little long in the tooth, and I think that you're right that Tanith and what's her friend's name? Shit. Um, the one in the mascot suit.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Oh no,
Richard,
Rich.
Richard,
Yeah,
Richard,
I think
Richard, Dick
Tanith
Grayson.
and Rich were written super duper well. I really liked Bree as well. Before um, but I think that some of the I'm hoping they're kind of one-off characters. There's like the stylist person, and then the like head honcho person. I think they were a little stiff in terms of like caricaturing the character types they were going for. So those two threw me off a bit. So that mixed with the kind of long walk to the start of the book did drop it down a little bit for me, but it was still very fun. It's still an exciting concept, and like you said, I think they're executing it pretty well here.
Yeah, and somebody got covered in was it a man? Sorry, in a woman's ashes,
That's
which
right,
is
in Grandma's ashes.
Mima's ashes, which is
Mima's ashes,
very
you're right.
very
That
entertaining.
sequence of him fumbling the thermos and then
Yeah,
the dramatic
it's
irony of her
so
phone
good.
call and stuff, it was very well done.
It's so good. I was so confused because I was like not in like I couldn't follow what was going on, but just I was like, why are we
Why
like
is this man having out a
why are we
thermos on a
following this
roller
man with like a
coaster?
thermos on a roller coaster? I was like, what does this have to do with anything? What's in the thermos? What's so important in the thermos? And then he's just on with
Oh, poor Mima.
oh, poor
She didn't
Mima.
spread very far.
Eternally within Tanith.
Eternally in the sewage system beneath Murder Kingdom. But we have one more
Yes,
book to cover
we do.
in the pull list rack. Are you ready to talk about Minor Arcana?
Let's do it. Minor Arcana, number 2. As Teresa enters the frightening memories of the dead, searching for peace for a desperate client of her late mother. Liminal and lacking luminance beyond her darkest nightmares, the trance she's trapped in is unfortunately exactly where she needs to be. However, Teresa's anger and unhealed past, combined with the revelation of magic being very real, will do more than muddy the waters, not to mention a dark figure trailing her from just beyond the light's edge. The writer-artist on the series is Jeff Lemire of Sweet Tooth, Black Hammer, and Maze Book, and the letter is we're back to Steve Wands, who also
Yeah,
lettered
Batman
Batman
and
and Robin
Robin.
early. Katie, you loved,
I love
loved
issue
the
one.
first issue.
Yes.
Do you
I
want?
think this is such it started off so strong, and I think that this is a really wonderful, albeit very short, second chapter. Like it doesn't feel like we moved forward much, which is like my big gripe kind of
The same
out the
thing with the
gate.
first issue. Like this is planned for the
Exactly. But
long
that
haul.
it didn't feel as rough with the first issue. And I think that something that I have to like wrap my mind around is he's guaranteed 4 volumes of this. So he's absolutely lackadaisical with the groundwork here. And like I love that for Jeff Lemire because honestly, anytime that I'm reading his art is just a good time. I love the way that he uses color and watercolor and texture. I think that the way that the I was her name said often. What is the
Um,
daughter's name?
Teresa, you're
Teresa.
talking the main
That's right.
character.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. The way that she interacts with her mother remains very wonderful. Uh, Again, I'll be quite brief in this issue. We get the really trippy way that Teresa moves into the kind of liminal magical space of mediums, and I'm very excited to explore that more. And we get a little bit more of her like mysterious grandpa figure, which I'm so psyched on. Again, my big gripe is that it just feels like it's maybe too comfortable with how much space it has to roam, in that it didn't roam very far in this second issue. But Jeff Lemire is so cool, and he's so good at setting a tone in his books, and I love to read the things that he's writing and drawing. How'd you feel?
I think I had more of a problem with the slow pace in the first issue because it was very much just like, okay, here's the setting, here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't really get much. This, yes, does not move far at all. But I think it stayed in a much more interesting moment than the first issue
That's
was.
fair.
So I was much
Very fair.
more excited with it here. Like we get this real trippy start, and then this whole afterlife realm sequence that I thought was just phenomenal.
So
Like
great.
I thought it was so ridiculously good and interesting, and then that connection of like, oh, okay, this is her, like this is what doing a medium like looks. Doing a medium, I don't know, like a seance is what it's called, right?
There you go.
Doing like this is what doing a seance like looks like. Like that's such a cool thing. And then we get such a good character moment for Teresa, where I don't want to spoil what she does, but she makes a decision with the client after speaking with her deceased husband.
Yes.
And holy shit, what a character moment. Like it's one of those things that just make like you get who this character is in that moment, and it's brutal, and it's something
And
that
I
really
love
makes
her.
you go like. But I don't want to spoil it, so I can't really go too much into that. But I think the fact that we got like this really cool sequence, we learned a lot about how like the magic system or like the
Yes.
medium system works here, and then we got like a really good character beat moment. Is like enough for me to go, yeah, we're moving slowly, but we got a lot here to build on.
Yeah.
And so I was very okay with it, and I really enjoyed this issue.
Hell yeah. Good old minor Arcana, man. Jeff Lemire.
Gold miner. This thing going for, I don't know how many books are in each volume. At least 4 would be my guess. I don't know if it's 4 or 5 or 6. But that means we're getting at least 16 issues here.
Which is super fucking rad.
Right. My hope would be that it's 6, and we're getting 2 years of this book, which would be
now important question. Yeah. This first volume is called the Book of Wands, and then the Book of Swords, and then the Book of Cups, and then the Book of Pentacles. Do you think he's going to find letterers with the last name Swords, Cups, and Pentacles for the other 3 volumes?
I think Steve Wands is just going to use a pen name for the other 3 volumes. Yeah. And it's just going to be Steve Swords when we get into the next volume.
Good old Steve Cups. He's my favorite letter in the business. No, wonderful. Good old Are we ready to pick our pull list rec for the week?
Are you ready? Do you have your
Are you ready? Because I'm not quite ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, you do yours. You give you a little blurb, and I'll decide what I'm doing.
Yeah. I'm going to be recommending that you pick up Murder Kingdom #1 this week. I thought this was a phenomenal first issue. It's not even a genre. Like I'm a big like I do enjoy fairy tales a lot and Grimm's fairy tales, so maybe that is a bit of a connection for me to expect like this. But I'm not a big murder mystery person. You know, when we get those kinds of books, I'm usually not all that jazzed about them on the podcast because it's not really my thing. But this, I think, did it so phenomenally. I love the setup. It's a full setup issue, but it's a really, really entertaining setup issue, in my opinion. So I think this is a book you should absolutely pick up and check out.
That's very fair. That's very, 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 very fair.
You got to pick now.
What if I just keep saying that your pick was very fair, and then I never have to choose?
No, that can buy you until the end of that sentence, but now that sentence is over, you have to start at the end of my sentence, which is right now.
Well, I appreciate you giving me all that extra leeway. I'm going to pick... Oh, it's so tough. I'm going to go with Batman and Robin. I think the reason I'm going to go with Batman and Robin is slightly cheesy. And I'm also, I'm realizing that I feel like I keep picking the Batman books. We know this. We know that I'm a Batman goon. I denied it for a number of years, or I slept on it. I hibernated. But I think that a big reason that I'm giving it to Batman and Robin is because with the DC All-In Initiative, they did do a really good job of making it a place to jump into a story. And
Absolutely.
I think that execution specifically is what gave it the edge over for me. I think that it's the start of what's going to be a cool story.
That's right.
Hopefully a
And I
little
want to
more
give it
Batman and
credit
Robin
for not
than
having to be
Damian.
number one for them
Yes.
to decide to make it a jumping on point. Like,
Yes.
we can sit here and it can be issue 14 and we can still say jump on instead of them having to go back to 1, which is cool. So,
Exactly.
you heard it right here. Murder Kingdom and Batman and Robin number 14 should be books that you pick up this week. As you know, you're contractually obligated to pick up the Polis Rex every single week. That's how that works. So if you're an indie publisher and you want to slide in there and tell us to recommend something, they'll have to, they'll
Yes, we
have
are
to pick it
not
up.
above being bribed.
We're
Uh,
not above being. You have
but
to give us free content.
speaking of indie public, no, that's not a good connection. I have no segue. We had some wonderful creators working on these books.
Let's segue into the section that Katie always has a very poor segue for.
Let's head over to the creator corner. All right, here we are in the creator corner where we sit back, relax, talk about writing, talk about the biz, talk about whatever it is that I want to pick. The biz. Whatever it is that I want to pick Jay's brain about. Jay, today we're going to talk about bees. And how to get some real buzz around your
Every single creator has to be a beekeeper. It's very important.
Mm-hmm.
Watch the movie The Beekeeper. That's how you start getting there, and that's an important first step to becoming a comic book creator.
And with that, that's going to wrap up the creator corner for this. No. To continue the trend started last week, we are going to stick to our spooky shit for this October creator corner. Jay, last week we talked about writing monsters, making them scary and like your classic Halloween beasties. But there's the other side of these stories, which are the victims of these monsters, the final girls, the first kills. I want to talk about writing victims, talk about something that we saw in Night of the Slashers and in Murder Kingdom. How do you make people like your victims before killing them? So we're kind of looking at shortcuts for creating likable characters. We're also looking at what makes someone a satisfying final girl trope. Who does get to kill the monster at the end of the horror movie, But to start out, let's what's the good? I think the opening here. Normally, I like to ask you where you would start when writing something, but I think this is specific enough that I don't know that there's a lot to draw on for it. What do you think are the characteristics of what makes someone a good victim in a horror story?
That's good. I feel like there's so many different directions to go with it. I mean, the most important thing is you already touched on this because it's the obvious thing is you have to make them care about this person. But I think the key thing is you have to make them care about this person. Typically, not for all of them, some of them might be around a little bit longer, but typically in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
Like you have to get them to care about this character in a short amount of time before they die, which I think is why often you get the ones who are connected to the final girl or the however you want to.
Yeah, we can just shorthand final girl, whether or not she's a girl, whether or not she actually makes it.
We'll make them connected to your final girl, like either through them being her friends or them being her family or I don't know, the parents of the person they're babysitting, whatever the hell it is. Like you connect them in some way so there's like that level of attachment when that person gets got. But a lot of things also open up on the just random person getting killed, and typically that you'll get something quickly to kind of orient you with you should kind of care about this character because maybe it's two characters talking about like their children, and it's like they have kids and they're hard workers, and then chomp, and it's like, oh no, the shark monster got them, King Shark got them. I don't know why that's where I went. I was thinking Jaws, kind of for whatever reason, just in like the shark trope.
The classic Halloween movie, Jaws.
Yeah. I don't know why that's why.
I mean, it's fair. Jaws is very much like horror movie vibes.
Yeah.
And Jaws does have victims.
It does.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. How do you feel about writing victim characters, Katie?
I think that yes, it's important for some victims to be people you care about, but I also think that you can get away with like to go back to Jaws real quick. The I believe the first people or the first person we see get killed by Jaws are those like hippies who are interloping on the beach at night, right? And they like go running out into the water.
Seen Jaws a very long time ago and barely remember it, so I
That's
would go in
fair.
purely
Uh,
on vibes.
that's so fair.
I
I
also
believe
do
that the
not like
first
Jaws,
victims.
by the way. Quick shout
Oh,
out. Do not
I
like
mean,
Jaws as a
he
film.
killed a lot of people. It's fair to not like him.
I meant I do not like the Jaws movie or movies. I'm not a shark movie person, honestly,
Mhm.
except for Sharknado. Sharknado is a beautiful
Well,
franchise.
that's not a shark movie. That's a Sharknado movie.
You're right.
There we go.
Sharknado
Yeah.
is just fantastic. So just do
I've
Sharknado does.
never seen it. But that being
Oh,
said, the opening victims of Jaws, I believe, are, or maybe it's like the second ones, but they're, in any case, they are not named people. They are shown being kind of like, you know, outside the law, kind of hippies in a way that is like maybe they're not victims the camera is supposed to care about, but they are there to be like inciting incident characters. We got that a little bit in Night of the Slashers as well, with the girl who got like crossbowed through the face by her grandmother. Um, so there is that type of victim where you don't need to be super connected to them. And I think that plays a lot into how many people are you killing in a movie, you know? Or in a
yeah.
comic. You've got Jaws on my
Yeah.
brain now, man.
Yeah,
Which
I mean, let me
mhm,
start with like I agree that you don't have to. I still think it's typically more effective if you can establish a slight connection. Like, let me give you an example. It's not that they have to be named characters, but you can very quickly. This is gonna be a weird example because they don't die. Because it's kind of a subversion of it. But like, go to the very opening of Invincible. You open on
mhm,
like these two security guards, and they don't end up getting killed. You know, thankfully. But right before the villain comes in to maybe kill them, like they get what, a minute conversation at the most, and instantly you kind of like those two guards and you're invested in those two guards. So if they had died, it would have been really impactful. I think you've seen the first episode of Invincible, right? So this is not, it's not falling on deaf ears.
yeah. I'm sure you at home have seen the first episode of Invincible.
I thought you had seen the first episode. I thought you'd
I
only seen the
definitely
first episode.
have.
Okay, yeah,
Do I
yeah.
remember the two guards at the front?
The two White House
No.
security guards. Anyway, in any case, I my point is like, yes, I don't think it's necessary because you can use it as more of a show of force. But personally, I think, especially if you're going for something horror where you want to kind of scare people and make them, I think adding in a little bit of like, you should maybe care about this character a little bit. I think it just makes it stronger, and I don't think it's
Oh,
ever
it
like
certainly does.
impossible to do. So yeah,
Yeah, but you don't have to put like a lot of legwork into them. Like just kind of
no,
baseline.
like I'm just talking
These
like a
are
page of
fine
just like
people, and we are sad
a
to see
step.
them die. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
but you ruined my beautiful segue because I was gonna say a lot of
All
that
right.
depends on how many people you're gonna end up killing. Because if like the
Oh
whole
yeah.
thing is like this is a serial killer who's killing a bunch of people, you can get away with more of those kind of extraneous deaths. But if you're looking at
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, this is a like group of teens being terrorized at Crystal Lake, I think that's the name of the one in Friday the 13th. Or if you're looking at, and this is going to be a weird pull, but I don't watch a lot of horror movies because I'm a little baby. Um, the movie, oh, I forgot what it's called. It's the one that has Maggie from The Walking Dead in it, and she's like taking care of a haunted doll that the people think is a real
Do
person and
not
also
know
might be
of a
possessed.
Lauren
I think
Cohen
it's just
horror
called
movie.
Boy. Um, in any case, you can have like just a one singular person being tormented by a force as well. So where are you looking when you're deciding the effect of these different kind of victim pool sizes?
That's a really good question.
Thank you.
Um, I don't know that I've ever done a like
Ooh.
just terrorizing one person type thing. I think typically that has to have more like mystique and mystery around it. Like that has
Mm-hmm.
to be more of like a, oh, something's not right, but you don't really know. Like that can't be like a, I know there's a killer here, and like because that's just gonna be really drawn out. Like that has to be more of like something like, oh, is why does that doll keep moving? You know, like for your
Yeah.
example of your thought, they were like, you know, why is my brain going to Five Nights at Freddy's, the video game? Like, oh my god, are those animatronics moving? You know, it's like
I mean, that's a one
that.
person being terrorized deal.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So like I
Yeah.
think that has to be more built around the mystery. If you want to do something built up more of like a slasher type villain, or like so you want to do something that's more like villain based or serial killer or something like that. And I think that's the difference too, is like where do you want to position the villain? Because I think there's your like creepy, weird force thing, which is gonna be like more of you terrorizing the one person. Then you have your slasher, where it's important to have multiple victims, and it's important to like see those victims being killed. I feel like if it's
Mm-hmm.
a slasher, you want to see the deaths. Something like a serial killer, I think you can do more of. Yes, you need a bigger cast, but I don't think you need to see those kills. I think you can see like
Mm-hmm.
the results of those kills. So like
Mm-hmm.
see people strung up, see somebody go missing, and then be have their guts wrapped around them or something like
Yeah.
that. I don't know, whatever the visual is. So I think your victim sizing and the way that your victims are killed both have to do a lot with what type of villain you are, or what type of monster, serial killer, whatever it is you're trying to build up. I think it needs to kind of highlight the correct features to make this the type of antagonist that you want it to be. So that's my answer, I
Yeah,
think,
I think
if
that's
that made
a
it.
very astute observation of the different, like, kind of levels of victim pool. Absolutely. I think you touched on something really good with it also corresponds to how much you kind of, how close you are on your villain.
Yeah.
Like, with the, solo victim, your story is basically the tension between those two characters, with something like the group, you've got the group dynamics going on. So you've got, these two are sleeping together and this one's an idiot, and you've got all of those tropes to work on that can create those openings for the killer, so it can be something a little more grounded, even if it has fantastical elements to it. And then when you get to serial killer, are you really looking at horror anymore? Maybe, maybe not. You can go either way. Um, but I think you can very much get away with, like, yeah, we're going to have the like horror of this coming from like the the more, I don't know, mental acuity of the villain, because like with the slasher it's often going to be like, oh, they're physically overpowering you and you have no choice in the matter. Or in the case of something like Freddy Krueger, it's like, oh, it's going to like mentally, physically overpower you, like it's still that he's coming in and
Mentally,
stabbing
physically.
you with his hand. Have I seen Nightmare on Elm Street? No. Um, but then you reel back to like some of the scarier like Criminal Minds episodes or something, and it's like, oh, we can't catch this person, and we know that there's like a ticking time bomb essentially with these things. And I think that with a lot of horror stories, we see that kind of fine line being the group of victims. So when you're looking at, let's just say, a sampling of anywhere from like 4 to 7 people, that's kind of like your prime slasher territory, I think. Uh, what do you think are some of the non slasher, non villain, non monster related ways you can give that group like conflict and interest going on? Like in a way
That's a
that doesn't rip you out of your horror story.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think
I was honored the first time you said it. I feel like you might be stalling now. Like you're gassing me up by
I
saying
am
I've asked you a good
yeah,
question, and you're just
I
lying
am
to me
sorry. No, no,
afterwards.
I do think is a fairly good question though.
Okay, fairly good. I'll take that.
Because I think
Throw more
this is
adjectives
like
in there.
the level deeper than this. Like this is, you already have your plot, you already have like your, like this is that
Yes,
level
yeah,
deeper. How do you build it out? I'm gonna start with the ones I dislike because I think that's easier than like the ones you
for
do
sure.
like.
Yeah, the overused
And
tropes.
the overused, because I was talking about that last week in the slasher, like the overused tropes of the horror book, and how it kind of takes you out. Like I think that kind of like, the jock's gonna kind of be a dick to everybody, and that's gonna be like a setup for his eventual redemption. And like, I think that's a little bit played out, like just having somebody be antagonistic or having them be antagonistic at each other, because like something that I've always really enjoyed about The Walking Dead, both the comics and the shows, I think while they don't do this with everybody, they do a pretty good job of being like, you know, for the most part, a lot of those things people aren't going to care about anymore because they're trying to survive. Like if you can
Yeah.
help them survive, they're not going to care as much about the fact that they like bullied you or didn't, like
Hmm.
didn't like people like you before. It's like you're trying to survive. There's like a new top priority. So I think that's kind of I don't love that like I'm just a bully so I'm going to keep being a bully in the apocalypse. It's like or in this slasher film or in this
Hmm.
situation where we're all in grave danger. What I do think is very realistic and a good one, and I'm trying to think of more because I can't just only give you one way to build tension, but I like the disagreement on how to handle things because that feels
Hmm.
very real, where
Very
it's like
realistic, yeah.
they have different ideas of where they should escape, or one wants to stay holed up where they are and just try to survive versus one wants to try to get to a safe haven, like I think that kind of goes hand in hand with like some sort of leadership struggle where it's like
Hmm.
they were following me but then you saved them and it's clear that you actually have a better idea of what's going on, and maybe I can't put my ego aside or I have to put my ego aside to realize that this person's the better leader.
Yeah.
So I think that's very natural. I think when you do these kind of life and death, like very prevalent life and death situations with characters that are on the cusp of being killed. They're in this really dire situation. You want to like dial back to like the most basic human survival things where it's like it's
Hmm.
about survival. It's about who's in charge. It's about, tribal, like very tribal things. Like it's very much we're not in modern society anymore. Like maybe you are still in modern society. It's just like but like they're not in that civilized thing now. Like they are trying to stop this slasher from cutting
Yeah.
all their throats open and they're all stuck inside this basement or whatever. Like you're gonna be dialed back a lot, I think. So personally, I like to make them more simplistic and more like bare bones type stuff than
Hmm.
the more nuanced modern, struggles that we have nowadays. So
Right.
there's my very long-winded explanation of how I like it to be done, which is
No,
not
I
at all
think
to
you're
say that you
you're
can't do it
you're
because
tapping into
people do
something
like
really good there
no.
with believable motivations. And I mean, there are at the end of the day going to be characters who are just stupid. Um,
Yeah.
like the classic horror thing of like, oh, why are you going into the basement? But there is like a very real motivator in there. Like you heard something in the basement, something's going on. It is a very real motivator to be like, I'm gonna see what's down there before it sees me, that type of thing. And so giving them like an actual reason for doing these things. And it can also be like I feel like a classic trope of slasher movies is like, oh, these two are now drunk and have gone off to bone. And it's like, okay, if you have a bunch of characters who are teenagers and like people have just gone missing, it's not that they're actual bodies yet or anything, you can be like, yeah, they're fucking stupid and they're in their own worlds. And I think that the in your own world part of it is a really good place to have like outside interactions. Like maybe your conflict is, uh-oh, we can't call the cops because we're up on this mountain. Uh-oh, we went to the
Isolation, I think, is a very
sheriff.
important factor a lot of the time. Whether it's
Oh
like,
yeah,
there's no cell service in this basement, or like you said, they're on a mountain or in the woods or something. So there's no like that you giving it a sense of like being cut off and isolated. I think
hmm,
helps it feel like this more. Like it's basically what I was talking about, like that they're not in civilization anymore. Like yeah,
yes,
they are. Like, they're still a civilized world, but you want to cut them off from civilization.
exactly. But you can also look at something like, again, Nightmare on Elm Street, something like Stranger Things, where it could also be that you know the reality of what's happening. Like, you know that a man is going into your dreams and murdering people, but you can't really tell people that. You know that you've tapped into the upside down, but Hopper believes you, but you can't tell random street person number one that this is going on. You can't tell the government this is going on. And you've got this sense of you are on your own, kid. And I think that that's a really effective thing to give in a horror movie or a horror book, a horror story, whatever the case may be. That whether it's a physical barrier, whether it's a like emotional, I guess, like a kind of social barrier is more so, uh, or whether it is like a self-imposed barrier, like and I feel like this works more for the like, kind of individual victim type thing, where it's like, no, I'm gonna deal with this on my own. You have all of these ways to isolate and to make people feel like their fate is in their own hands, and nothing is scarier than that. Like, there's nowhere to turn for help. And with a group
Yeah.
dynamic, I think that turns super interesting because you get then the conflict of, like you said, we need to hole up here and like be ready to attack something if it comes to attack us, or oh, we need to go fix the radio, or I need to get into the basement to get to the backup generator so we can charge the car battery, stuff like that. I think that a really, really wonderful example of something like that is actually the video game series Until Dawn. They have a lot of really awesome like character motivations of like, we have steps that we need to take and nobody's on like the same page and everyone is arguing. And I think, like you said, you do have a sense of reducing to tribal forces, but those tribal forces aren't always productive. Something like a struggle for leadership isn't necessarily productive. Something like
100%.
someone wanting to be in control is not helpful to people. So it's not that people are like, yes, we need to survive, so let's all do this. People are still going to be selfish. People might, like, be like, okay, here are the 3 jobs that need to be done. One is in the house sharpening the knives, one is in the next room keeping watch, and one is going outside and fixing the car. Like, there's still very much the politics of, okay, we're sending Jay to go fix the car while we're staying in here.
No, just like saying, and I think you hit it so really important. That saying that the motivations become more like natural survival based doesn't mean that they become like good or perfect or useful. It just means that they're different. Like it's no
Mhm.
longer you're sitting there and you're worried about necessarily being the one who I'm trying to think of something more modern now, and I am failing. Like you're not necessarily worried about like I want to look like I have the job that's the most like cool. It's like more like I want the job that where I'm gonna live, where I want the power, or it's just that slight twisting of the motivations to something that makes more sense in the present context. You always want to be looking at it from where the characters are and not where you are, like
Mhm.
imparting onto the characters.
But that
I
actually
think.
leads super well into my next question, which is, what do you think is the like before and after for characters? Like they all start as characters. When do they fall into like when do they become a victim character? Like what are we looking at change wise for a character while they're still true to who they're supposed to be, but they are now changed in some way? Like what's that
It's
arc?
when they know. I feel like when they
Mm-hmm.
when once they fully knows where you see like the like peak of the arc, I guess is how
Mm-hmm.
you'd call it. Like you're gonna have where they start, and as like people get picked off or things start getting weird, you're gonna see them start to bend. Like it's gonna be that like okay, preppy cheerleader goes into like okay now she's scared, but like she's still acting like a preppy cheerleader. She's gonna like hang on the. I'm going very typical
Yeah,
tropes because it makes
exactly. Yeah, we're,
like
we're
easier.
talking in
So we're gonna be like
generals.
now, okay, yeah, she's still acting like a cheerleader. She's scared, but she's still gonna play that as a cheerleader. So she's gonna like hang on the jock and be like, "You protect me," because she's still playing on. Now maybe the jock dies and they fully know that there's a slasher and they're like holed up in this basement now. Now you've hit that like midpoint of the arc because they know you've reached that point, and now it's gonna become much more. I think like the character's gonna change into a victim character. They're gonna be like,
Mhm.
okay, what makes sense for this character now. So now maybe instead of being like, she's gonna hang on whatever, guy she thought was popular, she's gonna go to the people who are actually like looking like they're gonna survive. And you can maybe have a cool
Mhm.
moment there with if the jock is still I know I killed the jock in my scenario, but if the jock's still alive, you can have that like tension of him being annoyed that she left, and that's how maybe then he goes out to his doom, whatever it is.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it's very much you're gonna build it with like where they are in their perception of where the story is. So like just because your reader saw the slasher in all its glory on page 1 doesn't mean your character did.
Yeah.
So it's going to play with what information the character has. And as things get more dire, I think the character is going to have to evolve or devolve.
Mm-hmm.
However that looks, whether that's nerd gaining confidence, whether that's, uh, you know, uh, damsel becoming, final girl killer, whatever it is. I think that evolution's going to come when their back's most up against the wall.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be slow. You need your stages of stage 1 of who they are before, stage 2 of who they're becoming as things get weird, stage 3 of who they are initially when they realize what's going on, and then like stage 4 and 5 of who they become by the end of the book. And the fun thing about monster and slasher books is not everybody goes through a full arc
Mm-hmm.
because people are dying along the way. So I think a lot of people die on stage 2, and then some people die in stage 3, and some people die in stage 4, and then maybe you have 1 or 2 characters that actually get to live to the final moment of that arc, which I think is one of the coolest things about like horror and monster books, is that
Yeah.
you get people whose arcs are kind of cut off, so you get a lot more, I think, natural feeling characters, because not everybody gets a full
Mm-hmm.
arc. You feel, because I think there's a lot more on
Yeah.
that maybe I didn't fully get, so I'm interested
Yeah,
to
I
hear
think one of the biggest things for me is that, just to use our cheerleader character, her motivation previously is, to be with her boyfriend or whatever. But what is her motivation for being with her boyfriend? It's because her boyfriend is cool. And so by being with him, she is also cool. And the motivation behind that is, because she wants to stay popular. And you can keep rolling back the thing to the very base
yeah.
thing of, oh, she wants to be in a position of power and security. And you can see how you can build those layers back up into a new motivation. Like you said, maybe he is no longer the like beacon of power and security that he was at their high school. Maybe now
Yeah.
the nerd has a shotgun, and so she's hanging out with him because she feels safer with him. And her whole thing is like,
Yep.
oh, I'm going to go where the power is. Or you have your jock who can have like a wholesome character arc. We don't discriminate against jocks here. Who can go from being like,
Good
yeah,
job. No.
I bully people because that's how I feel like I have control over them, to like I protect
Yeah.
people because it's not that I wanted control over them, it's that I like wanted them to I didn't want them to have control over me or some bullshit like that.
Yeah.
Classic
Yeah.
character evolution. And so I think if you even if your character has a very basic motivation on the page, you can very much peel back the layer on those to reform it into their next evolution once they get over that
That's such a
victim.
fantastic way to look at
Yeah.
it. Figuring out like what is behind where they are in their normal context, and then figuring out how to apply that to the new context. Like that's such a good way to look at it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
All right, I have one
Fantastic.
final question for us
Yeah,
here
yeah.
in our victim uh, creator corner.
In our
Uh,
victim corner. That's
yes, in our
awesome.
victim corner. Jay and I are actually about to get murdered by slashers that I ordered to our individual homes.
I am in a
Jay,
corner.
you are right in a closet. He's going to just slide the door back. It's going to be
Oh
terrifying.
no.
And Barbara
Oh
Gordon
god,
is going to
that
come
is.
alive and bludgeon me. But
Oh god, this
that
is
doesn't need to
awful.
be the end of our story. Maybe you turn around and you punch him with your karate skills. Or I use the fact that I'm a full adult and she's a statue to shatter her on the floor. Or maybe we don't. How do you think what do you think are the like boons and banes of having the killer win and having the victim win? And there can be different ways that winning looks for these two parties.
I'm a proponent of, if the story's ending, the monster murderer killer should win. I think in that setting, that is my preference. That's not to say that that's right, but that is my preference. If it's something that is going to continue, then I think it's very good to obviously have some of your characters live. If this is like a thing that's really going to move forward and keep going. Though you can also, if it's like just going to be a recurring villain versus like an
Yeah.
ongoing thing, you could obviously have you kill everybody and then show up somewhere else and kill everybody. I like everybody dying. I don't know. I think my first real exposure to uh, the horror film and it was zombies. So the zombie trope was the Dawn of the Dead remake. And that looks like everybody doesn't die, and then it has one of the greatest end credits sequence of all time as everybody gets murdered by zombies during the end credits, which is just colored my opinion. That is the best way to end horror things because it was fucking rad. But no, that's a really good question. I think honestly, outside of the potential for ongoingness, I think that's really personal preference. Like I don't
Mhm.
think you're going to obviously you're going to have to write for whichever one you're doing, but I don't think that decision is going to be the thing that makes or breaks your book in like a whether it's good or bad sense. Again, you're going to have to write to the one that you want. Like you can't write the exact
Mhm.
same story where the villain
Right.
wins and where the hero wins and have both work. But I think both absolutely can work. So I think it's very much personal preference, which is why I can end almost all of mine with the villain killing them, and that's fine. You could end almost all of yours with the
How
characters
does he
living.
know? How does he know that I would want the heroic characters to win? What about me could
But
possibly say that?
I mean, I think there is some more nuance to it than that. Like, I think, I don't know that it's done as often nowadays, but like, I feel like it used to be more of a thing where like, here's your horror movie where almost everybody is a bad person, and like
Hmm.
that is very much, I think, a
Yeah.
setup for everybody to die. Um, but yeah, I think like there you can if you want to find the best one for your story because odds are there are a best one for your story and you like as much as I like to force whichever one I like, but I think to find the best one for your story is just kind of I think you can feel it out very naturally in the sense of like do you think this character's arc ends with them dying or does this character's arc end with them getting this monster killed,
Hmm.
or defeating them. Because like you said, what does defeat look like, or what does victory look like? It doesn't have to end with killing the slasher. I keep going to slashers because I think slashers like the iconic, you
It is.
know.
It is.
And you can be like Halloween, where Michael Myers dies at like the end of every single Halloween film, and it's just back. Uh, so yeah, like it doesn't have to be killing. It could be like they get away, they escape, they get
Hmm.
to the police state, whatever the hell it is. But I think you can very much feel out where you think the character needs to go. Is it that they never had power and they were abused or whatever the hell it is, and it's like their arc ends with them retaking that power, and that really
Hmm.
does need them being able to take out the slasher, and that's that perfect moment for them as a character. Or is it like this character who had everything like systematically taken away from them and they're finally building up and it seems like they're going to take out this person but you feel like the perfect moment for this is this person like just losing after everything because that's going to be brutal and it's going to be impactful. So yeah, I think a lot of it is everything in storytelling comes down to character arcs at the end of the day. I
Exactly.
personally believe. So I do think if you want to find the best option, that's the thread to follow. But I'm also very much of the mindset that you can do it in the reverse. You can decide how you want it to go and then figure out the character arc that gets you there. Is that as effective? Probably not, but it's also a viable option. So I'm very interested to hear how you feel about this because I feel like this might be the thing in this creative quarter that we most don't fully line up on. So
Yeah,
I'm
I
interested to
think
hear how you
the
feel about that.
important thing is that we do line up on the fact that neither one is necessarily better than the other one. Like, there's
Yeah,
not a right way to end it, like you said. There's a really effective sense of brutality and finality if you kill all of your characters. I am uh, more of a like triumphant bitch, so I'm like, yes, I want them to take down the bad guy or to get away, whatever it happens to be for this type of villain. Um, but I think a lot of that also comes down to the tone of your book. Like, I think if you're going pure
that's a big
horror,
point too.
then it may fit the book better for you to kill your characters. Like, I think that you need to make sure that that final death is like the end of their character arc, because I don't think that it's particularly satisfying to cut everyone off in the middle. Like, if you end up with one victim left, they're ostensibly your main character, you know. I don't think that it's like the best thing in the world for you to kill them when they're at step 4 on that victim journey or whatever it is. I think you
I
let
fully
them
agree.
get to step 5 and then do it, and they like are still not strong enough or whatever. Um, but I do think that's a super viable option. Whereas if you've gone for more of like a I don't know, actiony kind of horror. Like I think a lot of slasher movies end up being that, where the like the
Yeah.
spectacle is the killing and stuff. Then it feels good to see this person who's been committing horrible acts get their comeuppance. Um, I think it's really interesting actually that you brought up zombie movies in this, because that's something where looking at the future in this universe, like with a zombie movie, if your characters are surviving, it's like what's next for them? What is this world? Was their goal in this movie to like get to some Eden type place or to get to some cure, or was their goal just to get out of the city? And depending on that goal, it might not be particularly exciting to be like, they got out of the city, but like, what's waiting for them? Because that, if you're not going to like continue that story, to be clear. So yeah, I
Katie
think
asking
that
the question that really just led to the creation of The Walking Dead. Just the what happens after the zombie movie.
yeah, and I wouldn't say that The Walking Dead is like particularly horror coded. Like we've talked about this before. It's not necessarily like the zombies are there as an obstacle and less as like a horror
Yeah.
element. Like there are
I
scary
don't know
things
that
in it
I'd
that
say that it's not still horror because like it's a weird thing because I still think it's horror even if the zombies aren't the main horror element because like the human threats become very I think
that's
horrifying
fair.
at points.
I've read
Right.
the first two volumes of it because Jay and I
Yeah.
haven't continued that bonus episode series
Yeah,
yet.
we really should. We really ought
We
to.
really should.
But
We should have thought
I
ahead
think
and
one
done
more
it
thing
for
that
October.
you would like spurred on to me is like I think another thing that like is interesting is you can do both, and
Oh yeah.
I'll quickly explain now here, because I was working on a horror comic that I was gonna co-write, but it ended up falling apart because we just couldn't agree on enough things to really build it.
It
But
wasn't with me, to be clear.
it was not with Katie. It was not with Katie. But one of the main things we were gonna do is everybody was gonna die in this, but it was this thing that had essentially a cure. And so the vibe was gonna be that the main character, the like final girl type character before dying, was going to get the cure to a place where they could hide it, and then it could, in theory, be uncovered later on by other
Mhm.
people to then like fight this threat. I don't want to go too into the details, but like you can do something like that where the character still dies but they get that thing that they wanted to get out there
Mhm.
where they also kill the villain, like they can both kill each other, so now at least nobody else is going to die even if this character died, so like you can have them win in a sense while still dying. So I just wanted to introduce that
Yeah,
third option
exactly.
of kind of that both.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Victory can look very, very different in these things. Though I will say, I think that any victory or any situation where the main character gets what they want is like a victim victory, even if they do die. As
Fully.
someone who is keeping track of who's winning at any given time.
Katie loves to
Uh,
tally. Katie's always tweeting me like, "Oh my god, are you looking at the score? Did you see who just won the new Halloween movie? Crazy! Oh my
that's
god,
me,
Michael
always
Myers lost
watching the
again."
new Halloween movies.
Yeah,
Here's the thing.
Katie cannot
Okay,
believe how often Michael Myers loses in the Halloween film. She keeps betting on him. It's really not a good bet, and I tell her every time, but she bets on him every time.
here's the thing. One of my dear friends is obsessed with the Halloween movies, and he has given
Have
me
a
a.
rampant fan base. Like
They're
fans of those
bonkers.
films, crazy.
There, and he's already bonkers. So him being bonkers over this is extra bonkers. Uh,
Yeah,
he gave me
I can
a
enjoy them. They're
literal
nice.
movie by movie, play by play from memory of all of these movies. Michael Myers takes nothing but L's. This man is losing left and right. It's so
Oh yeah, the
funny.
man takes so many L's. Oh
It's so
yeah,
funny.
yeah.
It's like
But
how
he
our
gets a lot
audience
of
is
like
afraid of him at
unimportant
this point.
murders. Like he's the definition of like that the murder of the characters you don't care about. Like
Yeah.
he gets all of those murders you don't care about, and then just gets yeeted on by the named characters. Like that is this man's life.
And it's so sad. I'm like, how are you afraid of him? Um, in any case, yeah, the writing victims is an incredibly important part of writing your monster stories, your horror stories, because somebody needs to be the subject of that horror, and
Arguably,
you
just as
want
if
them to
not
be
more
good.
important than your monster.
There you
Yeah.
go. I will say, I don't think that's true. I think that in most cases, when you're looking at a good book, that sure, that can be true, but if you're looking
I
at
think it
like
highly
truly
depends.
great books that stand out, that monster is going to be your iconic bit.
I think it really depends. Like it depends on like there's a lot I think that like I think slashers tend to go more towards the villain, but I think there's plenty of like especially if you're doing something like a zombie film or something like
That's
that,
fair.
you know, you're
This
gonna
man's
need
always
your
got zombies
characters
on the
to
brain, and I never do.
it's
My
because
primary
the
zombie
horror thing
association
that I'm
is
noticing
Resident
is that
Evil.
like if you go in that like I engage with a lot of zombie stuff compared to like if you go outside that's a slashers, like I think Halloween is really the only slasher franchise that I watched anything from. So like my thing's very skewed towards zombies because that's what I
That's so
enjoy.
fair. That's so fair. But yeah, so your victim, incredibly
Probably because
important.
those are
Whether
more
more
character
important than
based
the
than the
zombie.
slasher ones.
Sorry, what?
I said probably because those are more character based compared to the slasher ones that are more
Almost
on the slasher,
certainly.
and
Yeah.
I care more about the ones that care about the characters. So anyway.
That makes a lot of sense. But yeah, your victim's incredibly important. Whether or not they're more important than the monster, that's up to you to decide. But we have a monster of an episode next week. We've got a whole bunch of polls that we are going to be
We
talking
do.
about. Jay, what's
But
on the docket?
we have actually no new issues. This is all. I mean,
Ooh,
actually, we have one new series, but it's not the first issue of said series. So but everything else is later. So we have Daredevil, Woman Without Fear, number 4. We have Local Man 25, which is essentially a one shot, but it's
yes.
technically in the main line. It's doing the weird image thing where they all jumped ahead to 25 for no good reason. So it's doing that. We have The Pedestrian number 3. Katie was super excited when she saw that when we were putting
I
this up.
continue to be super excited.
We have Prairie Gods number 2, another book where Katie just loved the first issue.
Yep.
Ultimate Spider-Man number 10. And then, I guess not the first time, we're returning to a series that we were reviewing at the very beginning of this podcast. We are returning to Titans
That's
as
right.
John Layman steps on
Hell
for
yeah.
issue 16 of the series. John Layman, friend of the podcast. Go check out our In Hell We Fight bonus episode if you haven't already, where we got to
Yes.
interview John Layman.
But
And
speaking
that was
of
phenomenal.
bonus episodes, we had one this past weekend where it was the Strange Saturday Super Show. We
Yes.
talked about Sea Guy by Grant Morrison and Cameron Stewart. A bonkers one. I think Jay and I both landed on it. It's definitely in the top 3 in terms of strange for Strange Saturday.
Yeah, I think it's my number 1. It's a tough thing.
That's fair. I went
Madman
to
was
work,
pretty
so
fun.
I didn't get to mull over it so long. But I think Madman was at the top of mine.
I forgot about Madman when we first had that conversation. Then I remember like after I sent Katie like my top couple, just like 20 minutes later, I sent Katie, "Oh shit, Madman, that
Yeah,
was fucking
Madman
weird."
bonkers. Madman and the Max were both very weird.
The Max is super weird too. I think the Madman, the Max, and Sea Guy are like strongly my top 3. I
That's
think
super
everything else
fair.
is like a step below to where they're normal books with weird things. Like they're weird. They're
That's
super
fair.
weird.
That's
But like
fair.
they're
Yeah.
still structured or like they feel like a normal book. Just that's
Hmm.
really odd. Those 3
Are
just
just
are so
insane. They're wild
wild.
rides. But
Um,
also keep an eye out for this coming
yeah.
weekend. Jay, what is our bonus episode coming up? Oh, he doesn't remember. We are going to be doing a
Remember we
review
have one.
of Hellboy, the Crooked Man, the movie now.
I did
Last
forget about
month
that.
we read the comic book, but the movie has come
I was
to
like,
the
the deal is
U.S.
the 4th week.
So we're gonna read through that. We're gonna take a gander at everything that went on, and we'll be looking at it as a movie, but also specifically as an adaptation, since we read and really enjoyed the comic itself. So get
It's a
hype
very good comic. Go
for
check out
that.
that episode. Go
Yeah.
check out the comic review. So
And as a bonus note, if you're wondering why this week Jay and I both picked up Absolute Batman, but we didn't talk about it on the pod, it's because we'll be breaking it down in great detail, spoiler full, when we do our first Absolute Universe fantasy football
which I
episode.
believe should be the first week of next month. I believe that's when the
Yes.
Superman issue comes out, and we'll
Mhm.
probably be coordinating the weekend after each Superman issue, as that'll be the last issue in
Exactly,
each
because
set. So
that'll be the Trinities all completed. Yeah. So keep an eye out for that.
yeah, we're gonna be reviewing Trinity 2 on that apparently. Katie just said it, so we're gonna be reviewing Tom King's Trinity series as it comes out.
Jay's
If
trying
you
to
can't
bait me
tell.
into a clip, but it's not gonna work. bitch.
No, absolute. It'll be everything absolute. It'll be a catch up. It'll be the fantasy league. It'll be reviews. Everything in one episode. So if you're interested in the absolute line, that'll
We've
be
got
the
you
episode
covered.
for you. Yeah. So that's that. But in any case, see you next week, Comic Geeks.